Hello, Authortube. My name is Evan, and as you can tell by the channel name, Evan Writes. In this channel, I'm going to go ahead and do author-like things, bookish things, any kind of things you can see, okay? So we're just going to go ahead and get started with my first video being the Authortube Newbie Tag, because guess what? It's my first video, so that makes me a newbie. Alright, so to kick this video off, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about how I learned about Authortube. The last couple of months while I've been working, I've just been listening to Authortube authors in the background. Go through writing advice, go through experiences they've had, talk about book reviews, other authors. I've listened to other bookish people who don't necessarily write themselves but like talking about writers and books and ideas and stories. And after listening to all that, I got the idea that I wanted to start my own YouTube channel because it would be great to get to know other people, maybe critique partners, just friends in the bookish and writer community, just to expand who I am and my basis. It would be great for that to happen. So I figured a YouTube channel is the best place to start. It's worked for many other people. Maybe it'll work for me. As a writer, I tend to stick to the sci-fi and fantasy genres. I feel that they incorporate all of the aspects of other genres and can really play them up with magic systems and interesting world building, maybe different kinds of characters or races or aliens or whatever it may be. They're completely open. So to me, I feel like I can do anything I want in those genres. Whereas with things like romance or murder mysteries or thrillers, you tend to have to stick to a certain type of mold. But in fantasy, you can take those molds and apply them to a fantasy world. So I just love that. So I write in fantasy and sci-fi because they're fairly similar. It just depends on whether you have magic or technology, really. So for me, that is what I like to write. When it comes to the specific tense or style of writing, I prefer third person limited. There's just so much more you can do with it. You can get inside the character's head. You can tell what's going on around them without necessarily speaking through the character's experience. Whereas if you write in first person, which is actually the first novel I wrote was in first person, and I learned a lot of things you could and couldn't accomplish through first person. It's easier to get in and understand that character, but it's also harder to immerse yourself in the world. So there's a trade-off there. I feel like third person limited kind of is that nice middle ground where you get a lot of the world and a lot of the characters, and you can feel out the story through a character's experience and through the narrator. So that's what I like to stick with. When it comes to plotting or pantsing, I definitely am a plotter in most situations. I usually have an ending or a start of a story in mind or a nice world that I want to fill out a story into, and then I build out plot points from there. I know key sections of where I want to hit. I am an animator by trade, an artist, and it is my experience that I have to hit those keyframes. Make sure everything is hitting those special points that they need to hit, and then I fill out the rest as I go. So I pants in a little bit of ways, but mostly I'm plotting. Now when it comes to characters, I'm completely the opposite. I like to figure them out as I go. I know a lot of people like using character worksheets, writing down their hair color, their traits, what kind of things they do in certain situations, how they act, if they're good, bad, if they're mean, if they're nice, and all those kind of things. I don't feel like those worksheets ever help me out, and it just feels like homework to me. What I like to do more is to write them in certain situations. These characters, get to know them. How would they react when something happens? Usually in some key part of my story, so I can do two things at once. Now from there, I go ahead and once I start adding those things, if I know a character's hair color at this point, I'm going to go and add that to my own Word document. And there I keep track of those things for the characters that I've established. So I know that I don't break them in the future and do things that they're not supposed to do. But while I'm figuring them out, I don't like starting with sheets. I definitely pants them. Look who interrupted my video. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. So this is my cat. She says hi. She was messing with my DVDs a little bit earlier. So anyway, okay. So I am not yet published. It is a long-term goal of mine. I am really excited. This current project I'm working on, I have a 6-month goal to finish the first draft, and I plan on working this project through until it gets published. I'm really excited for it. I think it has that capacity to be published, and I just need to work my way through it. Once I finish the first draft, I'm going to start looking for critique partners. I'm going to start looking for beta readers and editing it until it is completely ready to start submitting to agents. So my channel is going to be very diverse, I believe. I am open to doing any kind of content you guys have liked in the past or want to do. If you want to have me go through and tell you what my favorite recent reads are, if you want me to go through on my favorite tropes or my least favorite things for villains or heroes or anything like that, go ahead and leave a note in the comments and I will get back to you in a future video. I'm open to ideas, or if not, there's plenty of ideas that I can come up with, trust me. Okay, so you will not be hurting for content from me. So, aside from that, you will also be seeing artistic things on my channel sometimes because I am an animator and an artist by trade. I work in video games for a living, so I have a vast array of storytelling knowledge, from short films to video games to writing. I just love media. I love stories, and I can't just stick myself to one type of media. So I write in my free time, and I do games and film in my, actual job, my trade. Maybe the two will swap one day. We'll see where things go. But you can expect to see some artsy things on my channel. Every now and then, maybe I'll throw in some video game loops. Maybe I'll play a scary game and throw in just some fun stuff for the heck of it, where I get scared to death, or who knows, just some funny clips. But mostly what I do want to focus on is writing and how I am going about my career. When did I start writing? Now, this might sound cheesy, but I've always enjoyed writing. I'm sure everybody on Authortube and BookTube has said that at some point or another, and it's just kind of cliche to say it at this point. But it's kind of true. I enjoyed it as a kid. I still have some of those stories I wrote in kindergarten. And interestingly enough, they had some out-of-the-box ideas. And I was surprised when I read them. They're still terrible. But, what can you say? I was in kindergarten. Anyway, though, there are 2 key points in my life afterwards where I really decided that I wanted to be published at some point in my life. The first was when I was in high school. It's been a while now, but I had a friend who really liked writing scripts and doing film, and every now and then I would edit his scripts for him and give him some tips, and that started me thinking about writing a book. And as I started forming my idea for my first novel, it just kind of resonated with me, and I really wanted to do it. And at that point, it became a long-term goal of mine to get published someday. It's a goal that I've had to put off for school and things like that, but it still sticks with me, and that's how I know it's something that I really wanted to do, something that's part of me, because I keep coming back to it. It's something that I've just enjoyed and really want to happen. A piece of me, a legacy to keep and have on my shelf someday. The second thing that really got me into it, and this was in college, I took a class from Brandon Sanderson at BYU. I was able to go and listen to him talk about his process, about writing, all of these different things, the ways he approaches his writing, how he builds worlds, how he plots, how he writes characters, all these cool different things. And through that class, it was the first time I ever got to experience a writing group. And that was amazing. And that's something that I haven't had for a while now since that class, is I moved away after that, and I just didn't know anybody. And I'm hoping through this channel that I can get to know people and get that experience again, where that writing group helps motivate me, and just bookish people and author tubers, just this community will hopefully keep me going, because I have this 6-month project that I've been working on to get that first draft done, and I'm just hoping to share it with everybody. Now, what was the first story I ever wrote? Now, it depends on which first story you're talking about, because if you're talking about that kindergarten story I mentioned a little bit earlier, well, I got a story for you. It was one of those typical stories where kids go through and just adventure through a cave or something. They had to defeat 3 bosses, And yeah, I used three fingers there. It was kind of weird, wasn't it? Three bosses. And it was just so strange. Like, each boss would have a thing. At one point, a boss would be talking in capital letters, and the main character would break the fourth wall and be like, hey, why are you talking in capital letters? And the boss person would be like, because I want to. It was just so strange. I mean, that was weird. It was kindergarten story. I don't remember it fully. That's mainly what I remember. I still have it somewhere if I look for it. And I also illustrated it too as a kindergartner. So I guess I've always loved drawing and making comics and writing. But if you go from that, my first actual novel that I went through and completed, even though I don't plan to do anything with it until maybe in the future when I come and revisit that story and make it better, because that was a high school novel. That was a fantasy novel. It dealt with magics, multiple planets. It was a really cool world that I had built. So that's why I do want to go back and visit it someday and tell that story again. But I don't plan to do that until after these stories that I have now, that I've been working on for a while, get published. Or at least one of them. And then maybe I'll revisit my original story idea, or at least the world, and go from there. This may seem obvious because I talked about it a little earlier, but the author that has inspired me the most is probably Brandon Sanderson. Mainly because I took that class from him. I learned so much, and he's such an amazing, clever, and nice guy. Like, he shares freely all of his information. He doesn't care about competition. He doesn't care about anything. He just cares about making people the best they are. And something I admire from him. He makes amazing stories, amazing magic systems. I just can't have more than enough respect for that man. If you really want to learn how to write and do it well, he has recorded those classes that I took, and they're on YouTube right now. You can go and watch his lecture series. I'd be surprised if you haven't already, honestly. If you're seeing my video, there's no way you haven't seen his. But if you haven't, by some small chance, go watch them. They're so good, especially if you plan to write someday, or even if you just want to understand better as you read through other people's works, what kind of things they're doing and what they can improve on and what they did really well. It's just so much you can learn and apply to life, not even just writing. So he is probably, my favorite author now. I really enjoy other works by, for example, Brent Weeks. I'm reading through The Name of the Wind from Patrick Rothfuss right now, and I don't know if I probably botched his name. I'm sorry. But yes, he's definitely the man who's inspired me most recently. When it comes to my writing sessions, I try to write a little bit every day. That doesn't always come out in just writing in a chapter. It means sometimes I'll be just focusing on figuring out some plot issues. Maybe I'll figure out some ideas for characters. I prefer it to be that I can get an hour or two in a day of writing a chapter and progressing in my novel, but that's not always the case, and it doesn't have to be. I wish I could be one of those people who can write every day without problem, but sometimes people just need breaks, and it's okay as long as you're sticking to those goals. I set a word count goal every week and I reach it, and that's all that I need. And I feel like that's all that anybody needs, is just set realistic goals and reach them. And if you reach them, allow yourself that time to enjoy other things too. You don't have to work yourself to death. Most of the time I write on my computer. I have a desktop, which is why I see that behind me. I can't move my laptop and record in front of my fancy bookcase, which I keep over there. And I'm not going to do it because I like looking at my books when I work. I don't like them being behind me. You guys can look at my Mega Mans. Okay? Because, I'm a huge fan of Mega Man, so enjoy. That's just some of the stuff I have. These around everywhere. Anyway, back to the point. Basically, I forgot what I was talking about. Okay, sorry. What was the question? Yes, okay. So, basically, I type on my desktop. Sometimes I keep notes on a notebook as I'm traveling. But for the most part, it's just a desktop experience, okay? I eventually will get a laptop so I can write on that fancy couch behind you. It's a 2-seater in case somebody ever wants to come with me. I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. The thing that I'm most looking forward to from Authortube is to get to know other writers and just avid book readers, people who love stories, people who can, maybe be my friends, critique partners, beta readers, anything like that in the future. I'm just really excited to get to know the community. It's so exciting. I've loved what I've seen so far, listening to other writers, and I'm just excited to be a part of it soon. I don't plan to grow very big. If I do, that's cool, but that's nice. Anyway, I'll see you guys on the other side.